student loans versus working. I share this because I get students who come in who are, for example, 2 semesters away from graduating, and they're interested in receiving financial aid, but the only type of financial aid that's available to them at that point is student loans. But they'll say, no, 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 I don't want to borrow student loans, and sometimes they'll just drop out. And they may not come back, or if they come back so many years later, because some may say, well, I'd rather just work and make that money, and then I'll come and finish my school when that is, but sometimes it may not work out that way. And so students see loan as debt and not as a resource to complete school. What have you seen?
That's a tricky call. I generally encourage students to be very cautious when considering taking time off from school to work, because you've made an investment 2, sometimes 3 years in college, and you have to consider that money that you've put in the bank, so to speak. Lots of times when students leave and they start making a little bit of money in the private sector or wherever, they never come back. And so then you have to think, okay, so that's money in a bank that you can never unlock again. If you go ahead and take a loan, and you don't have to take a huge loan, you can pay that back. Lots and millions of us do this, and it may take a while, but they have to keep in mind that if they do that, they're not throwing that money that's in the bank away. They're increasing their earning potential, and if they got a good interest rate on the loan, and that is critical to not take to understand compound interest. All college students should be able to do that. Some don't seem to understand it very well. But if the interest rate is low, the ones that I had as a student were low, and they seemed enormous amounts of money to take out when I took them out. Mm-hmm. But by the time I was paying them off, it seemed very insignificant amount. So I took a loan out for, I think, $10,000 in 1984. I was a freshman in high school heading off to college. Mm-hmm. And oh my God, that seemed like the most money in the world. But $10,000 does not seem that much money to me now, many years later. And I just finished paying those. I only took 2 student loans, but I just finished paying those off. I worked as well, but I also tried not to get jobs that didn't pay very much, because that's another one of those opportunity costs, because mm-hmm. a low-paying job is an opportunity cost for a better-paying job. Maybe a combination of both. We find students that work too much and then wind up flunking out of college, and then you're throwing money away as well. Thank God they're at CSUN now, because you hear this about students down at the University of Southern California paying $50,000 a year, taking out enormous loans, and then flunking out their junior year, or even graduating with a degree in something that has few employment prospects, and then they're saddled with these enormous loans. I think one of the things that we see most often, at least down in the geography department, is that there are lots of scholarships, awards. There's money laying around all over the place, and nobody applies for it sometimes, or very few people apply for it.
What do you think that is?
I have no idea. I think it is one of those things where it's like a lottery ticket, and people say, well, I won't play the lottery because my odds are poor. This isn't a poor odds situation. We have a full ride scholarship for any student that transfers into geography from a community college. Nobody applied for that scholarship last year.
Wow.
Stunning.
Stunning.
And then you ask students, oh, well, I didn't have time, or I didn't think I would win. And that is an opportunity cost. You didn't put in 15, 20 an hour's worth of time in order to fill out that application and send us some information, and so you forfeited 2 years possibly worth of tuition and fees.
Yeah, and actually one of the things too, when I talk to students about student loans, if they're getting close to graduation, and they say, well, you know, I'm borrowing already $15,000 student loan debt, and I tell them, well, if education is an investment and it's supposed to grow over time, it statistically has been proven that college graduates in their lifetime will earn about $2 million. So, and you compare that to the $15,000 you're borrowing.
Right.
It doesn't really mean a lot. But one of the things that you did say that was very important was be mindful. Borrowing is okay, but not too many. And also be mindful of where you're going to start working. And for example, I see students who borrow $30,000 or something like that, and then they start in this particular field that actually starts at a low earning cap.
Right.
And so then they find themselves that it's going to take them that much longer.
I think one of the other elements of that is this business of interest rates. If you borrow money and you can get it, say, at a 5% interest rate, and you have your parents help you, for example, if the inflation rate is 5%, your income is going up at 5% a year. It's as if that loan is shrinking rapidly, and so it makes sense to take your time paying it off because the loan is shrinking due to the inflation rate. It's less costly the longer you take it to pay off. Some loans don't work that way if the interest rate is higher than the inflation rate, and those are the types that you really want to try to avoid.
Okay, well, definitely. Yes, I definitely encourage students to kind of weigh the pros and cons, and I know the angle that I take is definitely consider student loans as a resource. That's why it's part of the financial aid package program. It's just a means to an end, but as long as you do it wisely, ask the right questions, consider federal student loans as opposed to private loans or payday loans or something like that.
Absolutely.
Because, for example, for this year, the federal student loans for undergraduates are less than 5%, fixed for the life of the loan.
And that makes so much sense. And you have to think about how that builds your credit rating. Now, my wife and I just went with my daughter who's in college, and her old car broke down. We had to buy her a new car. We put her on the loan. It was also 5% interest rate, which is nice, but she builds a credit rating, and that if she pays that off, plus if she had a student loan, you're building that credit rating, and that is money in the bank. That will save you enormous amounts of money when you go to buy a house, finance a car, or do anything else. So you can also think of the student loans as another kind of investment, an investment in your future. They're not that bad if you don't get a rip-off loan. So you have to do a little research on it, and this is what folks here in this office will help you with, those nice secured federal loans, which is exactly what I took.